A super quick session next, but very entertaining nonetheless. Musings from a dark web newbie. Threat intelligence knowledge manager Rebecca Taylor spent 6 months dipping into the criminal underground, and it was full of surprises. So she's here to share what she learned, including the politics and etiquette amongst key dark web players. Rebecca, I'm excited for this. Over to you.
Thank you. So, yes, hello and welcome to my presentation, Musings from a Dark Web Newbie. So, in my role as Threat Intelligence Knowledge Manager, I'm really lucky to see TI coming from lots of different angles, whether that's our botnet emulation framework, our instant response engagements, or maybe our own original research. There's lots of TI coming from lots of different sources that we can take and then nurture. One area which has always really interested me has been our dark web or underground forum research, but it's an area until very recently I hadn't had much exposure to. But I did have my preconceptions. I thought these environments would be murky. I thought the individuals within them would be consistently malicious. I thought, for want of a better word, these underground forums would be almost cruel. And so 6 months ago, when I was given the chance to start working in underground forums, I was excited, but it was met with some nervousness. I was, however, really keen to understand, what does an underground forum actually look and feel like? I was excited to know what I would see, and ultimately to answer those key questions of, are these environments, are these underground forums all that dark? And so I'm going to share with you 5 things I've learned along my journey that I found interesting, and hopefully you will too. So the first one is that underground forums are truly an adversary's safe space. In the way that maybe we use social media platforms, adversaries use these in a very similar way. They're their version of a coffee shop for chats and conversations with like-minded people. A marketplace for buying and selling, for finding things that they like. A community centre for mentorship, for job hunting, for asking for advice. And a courthouse for arbitration, for dealing with crimes against others, and for handling complaints. The second thing I've learnt, which might sound quite strange, is that these forums, within them are actual people. I thought they'd be full of faceless threat groups, faceless gangs, but this isn't the case. They're individuals with their own behaviours, traits and flaws, their own malicious intentions. They come and go at different times of day, they speak different languages, because they are actually people out there living their everyday lives. And so whether they are complaining about getting back into the swing of work after New Year, looking for some advice, looking for tips, or simply looking to sell something, these are all individuals maintaining their own presence. The third thing I've learned is that underground forums are not without moral compass. I thought all forms of maliciousness would be celebrated, and again, this just isn't the case. So I've grabbed an example to show you what I mean. Here, you can see Weecom is selling access to a hospital. Surely that's a good thing, right? Well, actually, this, like lots of other similar posts, was met with a lot of negativity. There were calls for the post to be removed, calls for this type of access to not be allowed to be sold in forums, and even calls to ban the individual. There are belief systems, there are morals guiding through in these underground forums. And on the topic of trust or morality, there is leadership and there are rules in place. When you start in an underground forum, you are at the bottom of the food chain and you have to work your way up to get full visibility. That's done through others advocating for you, through positive posts and through others liking what you're sharing. There are moderators across all of these platforms that make sure folks are following the rules. Again, an example here to share with you. In this instance, in Russian forums, one of the key rules is that you don't do anything to harm Russia. In this case, this individual was found to be doing just that, and so the moderator took the steps to ban them. But how did the moderator know? Well, it could have been through arbitration. Most forums come with an arbitration channel where users can flag complaints, issues, maybe they've bought a piece of malware that isn't doing what it should be doing for them, and they can write about it here. Others can chip in and add their commentary too, and then ultimately the moderators will decide what happens. That could be nothing. it could be a refund, right the way through to an outright ban. The fourth thing I've learned is that there is so much stolen data. I've looked after lots of customers that have experienced a data loss, and for them, it can feel intimidating, it can feel lonely, and it can feel really overwhelming. But good or bad, there is so much stolen data available in underground forums. Again, I've tried to quantify this for you. So the HUMINT team in August 2024 were able to identify 7,706,093 stealer logs. Stealer logs are normally captured by malware like Luma and Redline, and they contain sensitive information such as cookies, credentials, and crypto wallets. That is a massive number, and that is only stealer logs. There are so many other stolen data types, it truly is plentiful. And the fifth thing I've learned is that underground forums are a space where you can shop until you drop. Whether you are looking for malware, access, stealer logs, confidential data, exam papers, or maybe PII, there is everything and anything you could possibly want. And if for whatever reason you can't find what you're looking for, there are channels where you can go and post and someone will go and try and find it for you. The shopping experience is very transactional. An individual will post what they're offering. They have to typically share a price upfront. You can ask a question or two if you like, but otherwise you just go and outright buy it. It really is a malicious shopper's paradise. And so just to start to wrap up, I wanted to touch on technology. So for the sheer amount of intelligence and information that we're seeing as part of our dark web searches, it's really important that we have scalable technology in place. And so the HUMINT team built Rizzo. Rizzo collects and parses the data that we see, and then using AI supports translation, particularly if it's in other languages, and also allows us to query the dataset. Rizzo sits alongside TIMS, our threat intelligence management system, as well as HUMINT processes and procedures, together bringing human intelligence to life. And so you can see I've learned an awful lot in the past 6 months, but if anything, I have renewed hope. As I've said, these are individuals with their own behaviours, traits and flaws. If they can attack us, we are more than empowered to defend, and the CTU are waiting in the wings to do so. Thank you for your time, and back to you, Julia.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I tell you, when you called it a malicious shopper's paradise, I thought that was such a funny, and like you say, kind of normalised and human way of looking at this space, which is really helpful for everyone. So thank you for that. Can I ask then, from everything that you've learned in your mini journey, let's say, with the dark web, what kind of impacts are you taking into account when it comes to business?
Yeah, that's tricky. There's so many different angles you could take when you think about business and organisations, because there's so many different offerings and things you can grab on underground forums. Right. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that, as I've said, there is so much data. And within that data, we're seeing more and more belonging to organisations, including corporate email addresses and their associated passwords. So what I would say is that just stresses the importance of having multi-factor authentication, because it really can be the barrier between the threat actor getting full access to your system, but also the importance of having user awareness and training. So why do they need strong passwords? Why do they not reuse their passwords? And also, please don't use your corporate email addresses to sign up to external things such as social media platforms.
You've kind of seen it really in reality, and then the impacts of that start to hit home even more.
Yeah, very, very much so.
All right, well, thank you so much for that insight. A huge thanks again to Rebecca Taylor. And our next session is called Defending Against Dynamic Attacker Networks, where SecureWorks will be joined by their partner, AWS, for that one.